But the mind that creates its surroundings is never free from memories, fears, or laments, not only in the past but in the present and the future, because they have arisen from ignorance and greed. It is from ignorance and greed that the world of delusion is born, and all the vast complexity of coordinating causes and conditions exists within the mind and nowhere else. Both life and death arise from the mind and exist within the mind. Hence, when the mind that concerns itself with life and death passes on, the world of life and death passes with it. But the mind that creates its surroundings is never free from memories, fears, or laments, not only in the past but in the present and the future, because they have arisen from ignorance and greed. It is from ignorance and greed that the world of delusion is born, and all the vast complexity of coordinating causes and conditions exists within the mind and nowhere else. Both life and death arise from the mind and exist within the mind. Hence, when the mind that concerns itself with life and death passes on, the world of life and death passes with it. An unenlightened life rises from a mind that is bewildered by its own world of delusion. If we learn that there is no world of delusion outside the mind, the bewildered mind becomes clear, and because we cease to create impure surroundings, we attain enlightenment. In this way, the world of life and death is created by the mind, is in bondage to the mind, is ruled by the mind. The mind is the master of every situation. The world of suffering is brought about by the deluded mortal mind. Therefore, all things are primarily controlled and ruled by the mind, and are created up by the mind. As the wheels follow the ox that draws the cart, so does suffering follow the person who speaks and acts with an impure mind. But if a person speaks and acts with a good mind, happiness follows him like his shadow. Those who act in evil are followed by the thought, "I have done wrong," and the memory of the act is stored to work out its inevitable retribution in the lives to follow. But those who act from good motives are made happy by the thought, "I have done good," and are made happier by the thought that the good act will bring continuing happiness in the lives to follow. If the mind is impure, it will cause the feet to stumble along a rough and difficult road. There will be many a fall and much pain, but if the mind is pure, the path will be smooth and the journey peaceful. One who is to enjoy the purity of both body and mind walks the path to Buddhahood, breaking the net of selfish, impure thoughts and evil desires. He who is calm in mind acquires peacefulness and thus is able to cultivate his mind day and night with more diligence. Real state of things. Since everything in this world is brought about by causes and conditions, there can be no fundamental distinctions among things. The apparent distinctions exist because of people's absurd and discriminating thoughts. In the sky, there is no distinction of east and west. People create the distinctions out of their own minds and then believe them to be true. Mathematical numbers from 1 to infinity are each complete numbers, and each in itself carries no distinction of quantity. But people make the discrimination for their own convenience, so as to be able to indicate varying amounts. Inherently, there are no distinctions between the process of life and the process of destruction. People make a discrimination and call one birth and the other death. In action, there is no discrimination between right and wrong, but people make a distinction for their own convenience. Buddha keeps away from these discriminations and looks upon the world as upon a passing cloud. To Buddha, every definitive thing is illusion. He knows that whatever the mind grasps and throws away is insubstantial. Thus, he transcends the pitfalls of images and discriminative thought. People grasp at things for their own imagined convenience and comfort. They grasp at wealth and treasure and honors. They cling desperately to mortal life. They make arbitrary distinctions between existence and non-existence, good and bad, right and wrong. For people, life is a succession of graspings and attachments, and then, because of this, they must assume the illusions of pain and suffering. Once there was a man on a long journey who came to a river. He said to himself, "This side of the river is very difficult and dangerous to walk on, and the other side seems easier and safer, but how shall I get across?" So he built a raft out of branches and reeds and safely crossed the river. Then he thought to himself, "This raft has been very useful to me in crossing the river. I will not abandon it to rot on the bank, but will carry it along with me. And thus he voluntarily assumed an unnecessary burden. Can this man be called a wise man? This parable teaches that even a good thing, when it becomes an unnecessary burden, should be thrown away, much more so if it is a bad thing. Buddha made it the rule of his life to avoid useless and unnecessary discussions. Things do not come and go, neither do they appear and disappear, therefore one does not get things or lose things. Buddha teaches that things neither appear nor disappear since they transcend both the affirmation of existence and the denial of existence. That is, everything being a concordance and succession of causes and conditions, a thing in itself does not exist, so it can be said that it is non-existent. At the same time, because it has a relative connection with causes and conditions, it can be said that it is not non-existent. To adhere to a thing because of its form is the source of delusion. If the form is not grasped and adhered to, this false imagination and absurd delusion will not occur. Enlightenment is seeing this truth and being free from such a foolish delusion. The world indeed is like a dream, and the treasures of the world are an alluring mirage. Like the apparent distances in a picture, things have no reality in themselves but are like heat haze. To believe that things created by an incalculable series of causes can last forever is a serious mistake, and is called the theory of permanency. But it is just as great a mistake to believe that things completely disappear. This is called the theory of non-existence. These categories of everlasting life and death, and existence and non-existence, do not apply to the essential nature of things, but only to their appearances as they are observed by defiled human eyes. Because of human desire, people become related and attached to these appearances. But in the essential nature of things, they are free from all such discriminations and attachments. Since everything is created by a series of causes and conditions, the appearances of things are constantly changing. That is, there is no consistency about it, as there should be about authentic substances. It is because of this constant changing of appearances that we liken things to a mirage and a dream. But in spite of this constant changing in appearances, things in their essential spiritual nature are constant and changeless. To a human, a river seems like a river, but to a hungry demon which sees fire in water, it may seem to be like fire. Therefore, to speak to a human about a river existing would have some sense, but to the demon it would have no meaning. In like manner, it can be said that things are like illusions. They can be said neither to be existent nor non-existent. Yet it cannot be said that apart from this world of change and appearance, there is another world of permanence and truth. It is a mistake to regard this world as either a temporal world or as a real one. But ignorant people of this world assume that this is a real world and proceed to act upon that absurd assumption. But as this world is only an illusion, their acts, being based upon error, only lead them into harm and suffering. A wise man, recognizing that the world is but an illusion, does not act as if it were real, so he escapes the suffering.